A county line is effectively a way of describing the transportation of drugs from a large metropolitan city such as London down to rural, provincial or seaside towns. It's a telephone which is essentially a database of users, and drug dealers will use that telephone in order to make drug deal contacts. The County Line business model between London, Kent and Medway is really one of the exploitation of young people, using them to transport the drugs from London down to Kent and Medway. This is done by placing young people on public transport or sometimes in private cars, giving them the drugs to distribute once they arrive. An additional model is whereby young people live locally and distribute the drugs more locally through what is called a regional hub. There have been some changes during the lockdown and the COVID pandemic. What we find now is that there are more localized dealing from cars. Cars may pull into a supermarket car park or even a hospital car park and do their dealing directly from there. There are fewer trips down on trains and buses because young people are more visible, because there's been lower footfall. And we also find that some young people are hiding in plain sight, dressing as joggers or even NHS primary care workers in order to go undetected whilst they're dealing. Young people are recruited into County Line's work really very easily, mostly through their friendship networks. Occasionally, they can be invited or even coerced into this activity. Quite often, they are promised a series of goods and favors and gifts which might appeal to them. That can be anything from a pair of trainers to the opportunity to get away from home and work outside London for a week, 2 weeks, or even 3 weeks. They're attracted to this principally because of the opportunity of making money. They're promised to make a lot of money, but in reality, they don't really make much at all. Sometimes really only chicken change. If they are put up in a local accommodation, such as a rented flat or a property that might have been cuckooed, then the drug dealing gang can deduct a rental payment from them. Quite often they're forced to work because they're in debt to the gang. If money goes missing, or if there's a shortfall in the amount of drugs at the end of the day, they will be forced into debt. And once they're in debt, they'll be forced to work for free. So for young people, this County Line's lifestyle can be very attractive. They think they're going to make a lot of money, but in reality, they don't. They think they're going to be a gangster or operate as a gangster, but frequently they are at the bottom of the pile. And that means they're subject to a great deal of threat, intimidation, bullying, and frequently made to work for free. So in reality, it's not a glamorous lifestyle at all. Many of them also try to gain status and respect amongst their peer group by running county lines or working for a county line. But it can mean that young people can disappear from home and go missing for 1, 2, or even 3 weeks. I think the County Line problem is becoming more serious. One of the reasons for that is the age groups involved. We find young people now aged 14, 13, or 12 who are engaged in running drugs and transporting drugs, either from the major cities out to rural, provincial, or market towns, or operating within the town, doing short runs and distributing drugs. They can also be used to hide weapons and used to carry weapons. This puts them at great risk of physical violence. One aspect of county lines is, what does the young person do once they arrive in this new town? And quite often, the drug dealers will make arrangements for them to stay overnight or for a few days in a property. Sometimes that can be a rented property or even an Airbnb. On other occasions, it may just be living in an abandoned property on a squalid mattress. At other times, drug dealers themselves will try and take over the property of a local person. That person usually is somebody who's highly vulnerable. They may themselves have mental health issues or physical disabilities, or they may be addicted to alcohol or drugs. Quite often, the young person will find a way into that property, either by violence and coercion or by pretending to be their friend. Once inside, they will start dealing their drugs from that location, often intimidating and bullying the vulnerable young person or the vulnerable adult who may be living there. We call this practice cuckooing, after the bird that takes over the nest and pushes others out. There are a number of things that we can do to help prevent and resolve the issue of county lines and the impact it has on our young people. Firstly, for parents and carers, it's about recognizing the signs. Has your young person become more remote? Are they playing truant from school? Have they disappeared or gone missing? Are they suddenly wearing a pair of expensive trainers that you haven't bought them? Do they suddenly have more money, perhaps, than they had before? Are they reclusive and reluctant to have a conversation about this with you? Do they look fearful, as if they're being intimidated or frightened by other people? Those can be some of the signs to look out for. On a higher level, I think the duty really lies in partnership working. This is the opportunity for all key practitioners and stakeholders to come together. The police, the council, local schools, mental health facilities, drug working facilities, everybody to work together in order to identify what's happening, how it's happening, and how it presents in your own local town. It's really only by working together and tackling the solution can we really have any effect in terms of reducing the impact upon young people.